The following retro sports special is made possible by HockeyTournaments.com. HockeyTournaments.com. If you are looking to play in a hockey tournament in North America, HockeyTournaments.com is where you should go. If you're a tournament organizer, well then HockeyTournaments.com has the right package for you to advertise your tournament to get the best teams to come visit you. That's HockeyTournaments.com. 39 years ago at this very hour, if you're watching live, and I see one person is, 40 miles to the west of where I am now, might have been one of the biggest international sporting events of all time. The Soviet Union and the United States in the opening of the medal round of the 1980 Winter Olympic Hockey Tournament in Lake Placid, New York. Now, the Soviets, if you're not old enough to remember, were probably, if they played in the NHL, would have gotten a playoff spot and may have actually contended to get into the Stanley Cup Finals. This was an amateur team in name only. They are pros and pros and pros. In fact, I believe their starters feature 3 Hall of Famers. Valery Karmalov, Vyacheslav Fetisov, and of course, maybe the best goalkeeper of all time in Vladislav Tretiak. The United States was just a ragtag bunch of college goofs, led by Mike Eruzione. Not much was expected. They played a pre-tournament game in Madison Square Garden, where the Russians just destroyed the Americans 9-1. Nobody expected anything from the American hockey team, and the country was in desperate need of a pick-me-up. And so on this Friday night, where the IOC would not allow ABC television to carry the game live, it had to go on tape delay. Don't ask me why. ABC was not happy. These two teams met. And as I said, this was not a medal game. It was a weird tournament that year. They took the top 2 teams from each of the 2 groups, played the other top 2 teams from there was 2 groups, and so they played against each other. The record against the team that was from their group counted. It was confusing. There was no semifinals. There was no even guarantee of a medal if they had won this game. But they did. And then 2 nights later had to go and beat Finland, who did not medal at all, even though that they played the United States in the last game. All right? So there you have it. So on this 39th anniversary, it's the Soviets and the United States from Lake Placid. Now, no overtime, no shootout. If it's tied after 60 minutes, just like it would have been all that time, it's a tie. And I would venture to guess the Soviets are going to be pretty heavy favorites here. I am coaching the Americans, but they are going to do the auto lines and stuff. Make sure I'm on the right button here. I'm not gonna do any of the lines. I'm just gonna play the Americans, and the computer, which is very able, is playing the Soviets. So the starters for the Soviet Union: Viktor Slutkov is their center, Valery Karmalov is the left wing, and Sergei Makarov is the right wing. The KLM line, one of the best known of its time. Makarov, 79 points in 66 games. Karmalov and Zhuklov can score. Defensively, Vyacheslav Fetisov and Alexei Kazatanov and my speaker thought I said the magic word. Great defensive, and of course in net, the Hall of Famer Vladislav Tretiak, who got pulled in this game. For the Americans, Mike Eruzione on your left wing, Mark Johnson the center, and Rob McClanahan on the right wing. Defensively, it's Mike Ramsey on the left, Jack O'Callahan on the right, and Jim Craig, who probably had the absolute game of his life, is in the net tonight for the United States. No, this was not a playoff game. This was, they did it weird. They took the top 2 teams from each group and put them into kind of like a super group, and whoever had the most points at the end of their 2 games was given the gold medal. And I forget who the United States was paired with. Sweden. So So whatever the U.S.-Sweden result in game was also counted in the medal round, and whoever won the Soviet-Finland game from their group counted in the medal round. It was really, really bizarre how they did it that time. And any other year, they would be overtimes and shootouts. But in 1980, this is how they did it. And so we're going to do it the same way. The Soviets lost this game. It still got the silver, okay, because they throttled Sweden 9-1 in their second game, and the U.S. beat Finland, I think, 4-1. So that's how the U.S. got their gold. They must have beat Sweden in their regular group, and they obviously won this one 4-3, and then they beat Finland to win the gold. But they conceivably could have lost to Finland and got nothing out of it. Really, really weird. All right, so those are your starters. There's supposed to be no pictures. So Slutkov and Johnson ready to face it off here. The United States will play balance. And as I said, the computer is doing all the line changes and stuff. Oh, they tied Sweden. Okay. That's right. They went I just looked it up. They went 2-0-1 in medal play in the first round, and they won their 2 games in this kind of super group and got the gold medal based on that. So Ruzioni, Johnson, and McClanahan, the forwards for the States, Ramsey and O'Callaghan, the defenders. As I said, Kharlamov, Slutkov, and Makarov for the Soviets, Fetisov and Kasatonov on defense. We are ready to go. Johnson wins it for the Americans. They shoot it back out, and we've got an icing call. And already a line change 18 seconds in. Goylikov, the 2 Goylikovs on left wing and center, Balderez on the right for the Soviets, Silk, Christoph, and Harrington. Christoph and Vladimir Golikov will face it off in the American zone in front of Craig. And Golikov wins the face-off. Fetisov over to Balderez to Vladimir Golikov. Shot from the dot. Craig makes the first save of the game. It rolls off, and rebound is controlled by the United States. Ramsey will skate it up out of the zone. It goes all the way down and back on the Soviets. Their rush doesn't go any very far. O'Callaghan has it for the Americans. A minute 2 gone in the first period. Shot in the corner to Christoph, to Silk. Ramsey loses it, and back come the Soviets. Alexei Golikov. Checked by Morrow. To Balderez. To Golikov. They pass it around. Penalty coming up. Balderez. Malikov is it's going to be Vladimir Golikov with a shot from the face-off. And scores! Golikov scores! And Baker was called for a charge. It won't go on there from Balderez. So the Soviets go on the board 2 minutes into the first period. 18-10, time of the goal, 150. Yeah. So Neil Broughton is the center for the Americans with Schneider and Dave Christian on the wings. Baker and Morrow are the defense. For the Soviets, Maltsev is the center with Mikhailov and Krutov on the wings, but Vasiliov and Peruvikin are the defensemen here. Oh, yeah, I remember Pele Lindbergh. Won a Vezina for the Flyers, that's right, and was killed in a car accident. So Broughton and Maltsev face it off. Schneider will draw instead, and Maltsev wins it to Mikhailov. Over to Maltsev. Krutov. Right side slot, no. Wide, here come the Americans. Broughton will start the play. They dump it around. Christian to Broughton. Schneider. Slap shot from the slot, left. Tretriak with a save. Rebound goes to the Russians, and they clear it. Played center ice by Mark Johnson, the first line center. Americans will skate it in. Both teams change. McClanahan to Johnson. Suter, the left defender. Shoots, and Tretriak gets a glove on it. Tretriak gets a glove on it. So face-off coming in the Soviet zone in front of Tretriak. 16:58 first period. 1-0 Soviet Union. Ruzioni, Johnson, and McClanahan out the front line for the Americans. Suter and Hughes, the third line defenders. And the KLM line is out for the Russians. Karmalov, Zhuklov, and Zhuklutov and Makarov, with Starkoviv and Bayeltidinov. Johnson draws it back. Soviets win it. Makarov tries to dump it in. Komarov to Makarov. It's Lukov. He can't control it. And back come the Americans. Ruzioni to Johnson in the zone. McClanahan. Medium shot right wing. Tretiak makes a save and he'll hold on. So Schneider, Broughton, and Christian come on for the Americans with the first line defenders, Ramsey and O'Callahan. Krutov, Maltsev, and Mikhailov. For the Russians with Fetisov and Kasatonov on defense. Yep, that's true, Robbie. They came back from behind in every game. Broughton will try to draw it back. Maltsev wins the face-off to Mikhailov. To Maltsev. Krutov in good position here. He shoots. Mikhailov tries to tip and misses it wide. Schneider on the wing for the United States. Over the line to Ramsey. To Dave Christian. O'Callahan to Broughton. Broughton behind the net. Doesn't have anybody open. They'll try to set it back up. Ramsey. Hit by Maltsev. Here come the Russians. Soviets have it. Both teams change. Balderez dumps it in for Golikov. And Balderez and Baker get called for roughing. 2 minutes apiece, and now we go 4-on-4 with 15:12 to go in the first period. So the penalties will come at 4:48 of the first period. So Ruzioni and McClanahan, the forwards for the United States. Harlamov and Makarov are out there for the Soviets, with Starikov and Bayeltidinov for the Russians. Sutter and Morrow for the Americans on defense. Face-off is to the right of Craig. And Karloff, but the Americans win it. Ruzioni to McClanahan to Morrow. Long shot wide of the net. Soviets have it. Makarov over the line to Karlamov. He gets a slapper down and gets it through Craig's legs. And this is an auspicious start for the Soviets. Karlamov just ripped it right through. And it's 2-0 Soviet Union with 1:28 to go in the penalty. So the Americans, who have 3 shots on net, have got a hill to climb. How you doing, Beats? Already down too early. So Christoph and Harlamov will face it off here at center ice. And Karlamov draws it back. Shot behind the net. Fetisov has it. He's going to try a long shot. Makarov with a screen. Fetisov blocked by Ramsey. The United States has it. They dump it. Silk to Christoph. Slapper. Tretiak gets the glove up and holds on. 14:03 to go in the first. 51 to go in the penalties. Ruzioni and McClanahan. The forwards now for the States, 4-on-4. Sutter and Morrow, the defenders. Krutov and Maltsev for the Soviets. Vasiliev and Peruvikin on defense. And Maltsev wins the face-off to Vasiliev. 3-on-2 through the middle. Peruvikin. Vasily shoots. Craig saves it and holds on. The Americans are not winning face-offs, and that's one of the reasons why they're already down 2-0. So Ruzioni and Maltsev will face off here. In the American zone, Maltsev wins it. Peruvikin, slapper by Maltsev. He shoots Og with a block. The United States has it. Og skates it into the zone. McClanahan to Sutter. He loses it. Penalties are over. Baker's back for the States. Golikov the other way to Peruvikin. Now Golikov will shoot. Craig screen makes the save. Got a timeout here. 12:45 first period. Soviet Union leads this middle round game 2-0. Yeah, yeah, it was pretty bad, and I, everything just kind of goes in the right place. Someone actually requested this game, and I actually didn't have it. I went and bought it because it was cheap, and I don't. You could play this game 100 times, and I would think the Soviets would win at least 80. So Johnson in front of his own net. Lutkov, Makarov, and Karmalov for the Russians. Ruzioni and McClanahan with Johnson. Face-off is won by Johnson. McClanahan 3-on-3 to Ramsey to O'Callahan. Delayed penalty. The United States going on the power play. O'Callahan shoots it wide, and the Russians get it. And Makarov gets 4 minutes for a high stick. So the Americans get a big power play early. 12:31 to go in the opening stanza. And so it's V. Golikov with Lebedev, and by Yeltsinov and Starkov for the Soviets. For the Americans, Johnson with the Ruzioni and McClanahan on the forwards. O'Callahan and Ramsey will play the point. Johnson wins the faceoff to O'Callahan. He fires a slapper, rebound by Tretiak and out of play. So we get another faceoff. How you doing, ID? So again, face-off now coming in front of Tretiak. 4-minute minor to Makarov for being a douche. And the U.S. wins the draw. O'Callahan to Ramsey. Slapper. Tretiak with the rebound, and it is controlled by Johnson. Johnson has McClanahan open inside. McClanahan, cross crease. Shoots! Tretiak with the save. Oh, what a save. Rebound. Johnson has a Ruzioni outside. Ruzioni from beyond the faceoff dot. Wrist one. Saved by Tretiak again. And now the Russians send it deep. Johnson, stolen by Golikov the other way. Here come the Soviets, and Ruzioni knocks it off. Ruzioni carries it over the line to O'Callahan. Now to Mark Johnson. 2:53 to go in the penalty. Johnson is going to try to penetrate past Zulikov. Johnson makes his move. Going to shoot it high. Tretiak gets a glove on it and holds on. So the Americans have put 5 shots on in the first minute and 14 of this power play, but that stone wall with the hammer and sickle on his shoulders has held firm. And so it'll be Neil, Broughton, Silk, and Harrington for the Americans with Suter and Auger. Harlamov and Zlutkov, the defenders now for the Soviets, with Kasatonov and Vasiliev playing defense. Broughton wins the face-off. To Aug, to Silk. Silk with a slapper. Left side, Vasiliev blocks it. Kasatonov and the Russians clear. Aug sets it back up for the Americans. 2:36 to go in the power play. Suter. One-timer deep left side. Vasiliev with the block. Kasatonov has it, and it dumps it down. Controlled by Silk, about halfway, 2:28 to go in the penalty. Soviets change. Broughton to Harrington to Broughton. Silk. Broughton's open in the middle. Silk tries to deliver the pass. Broughton has a shot. He shoots. Tretiak with a save. And a hold. And that's the 6th shot on the power play for the Americans. So Zlutkov and Karmalov, the forwards, just the B guy, I'm just going to mess it up. And Starikov for the right defender for the Soviets. Suter and Aug, the defender for the Americans. Broughton, Silk, and Harrington, the forwards. 2-0 Soviet Union. Just about halfway through the first period. No, there's no, Tretiak's not getting pulled. Broughton wins the face-off. Sutter to Harrington. The right wing fires. He shoots, saving a rebound. It's in front, Harrington has it. He's behind the net and they're trying to suit up Suter. From the point, no. See Silk open for a mid-range shot. Silk shoots, saving a rebound. Broughton behind the net. Broughton still has it. Has Suter open outside from the blue line. Last one. Silk tries to deflect it off the post. Oh my goodness. Now Karlamov tries to skate it, and the Soviets come in offsides. 8 shots by the Americans on this power play, and Tretiak has stopped them all. Minute 20 to go. This face-off is coming right outside the American zone. Johnson, Eruzione, and McClanahan, Lebedev, and Golyakov for the Soviets. Kasatonov and Vasiliev, the defenders for the Russians. O'Callahan and Ramsey for the Americans. So Johnson wins the face-off. McCallahan in the zone. McClanahan to O'Callahan, over to Johnson. Johnson. Center shoots. Vasiliev with the block. Johnson has it. Eruzione open outside. Eruzione will shoot. Save by Tretiak. Rebound is controlled by McClanahan. He's going to do a wraparound here. McClanahan tries to wrap it around. Shot is wide left. Oh, boy. Eruzione, nobody open. Minute 2 in the power play. O'Callahan will try and shoot. Far side from the left. By the blue line. One-timer. Tretiak got a piece of that one, saved it. And leaves it for Kasatonov, and the Soviets clear. Now O'Callahan, 42 seconds left in the double minor. Both teams change. Schneider dumps it in for the Americans. Christoph to O'Callahan to Strobel behind the net. No one open. 23 seconds left. Again, Strobel, 19 seconds. Tries to pass it around. He does to Ramsey. Ramsey has Schneider open outside. Pass to Schneider. O'Callahan to Ramsey, hit by Golikov, and the Makarov is back. The Russians kill the double minor. My goodness, 10 shots and nothing gets past Tretiak. Here comes Maltsev the other way. Makarov to Fetisov. Fetisov loses the puck. Here comes the United States. Schneider to Christoph. Strobel loses it at the blue line. Makarov skates it around for the Russians. Moron, Skortsev battle for it. Lebedev. Soviets have it, and they lose the puck. Here's Strobel over the line for the Americans. Forehand shot from Strobel. He shoots, saved by Tretiak. In the pads, and he'll hold on. 7:23 first period. Soviets 2, Americans 0. Drink time. And yes, ID, that was a very good stream you had there. And you could pass along that email information. I have some suggestions I'd like to make to him, specifically with the board reader. Well, long-haired hippie rooting for the Russians. But you know, Beatles sang it best. Back in the USSR. Boy, you don't know how lucky you are, boys. Back in the US, back in the US, back in the USSR. I guess that probably was not played at the Olympic rink in Lake Placid. And if you missed the opening, I'm only 40 miles away as the crow flies from Lake Placid. So Johnson and Maltsev are ready to face off in the Soviet zone. Tretiak looks. Johnson tries to trump it back. He does. McClanahan has it. Skates behind the net. No one open. And McClanahan has it again. No one open. Soviets will let the Americans dump it around all day. Now Johnson has it. Johnson guarded by Fetisov. And tried the outside shot. Shoots. Saved by Tretiak again. So Christoph, Silk, and Harrington. Christoph will face off against Lukov. Makarov and Karmalov. The KLM line on for the Russians. Peruvikin and Vasiliev for the Soviets. Baker and Morrow on defense for the Americans. And the face-off was won by Zlukov to Makarov in the zone to Zlukov. Karmalov with a shot. Right side. Craig saw that one all the way, and we'll get a face-off. 6:15 first period. Broughton, Schneider, and Christian on for the Americans, or Ramsey and Callahan. And the KLM line still on for the Soviets. Lutkov wins the face-off to Makarov. He fires a wrister. Craig sees that one all the way. We get a face-off. 6:01 to go. 16-7. Shots in favor of the Americans. Wifey gonna row you on the boat? No. No, and I think the lake's kind of frozen this time of year, Clinton. ID didn't know that they won. 1980. 1980. No, Sarah's not going to row me on the boat. There are limits to what she will do, and that's not one of those things. All right, so Christoph and Golikov, Vladimir, who already has one of the Russian goals, will have the face-off in front of Craig. Christoph wins it. From Silk to Christoph over to Harrington, behind the net, no one open. Americans dumping around. Baker, open for the shot, left side. Fires, and Tretiak makes the save and holds on. Timeout on the ice, 5:28 first period. Soviets 2, Americans 0. Actually, the idea, it was someone in the commenters from last night's conversation that wanted this game. So Ruzioni, Johnson, and McClanahan, the forwards for the Americans. Ramsey and O'Callaghan on the defense. Sportsov, Petrov, and Lebedev are the forwards for the Russians. Fetisov and Kasatonov on defense for the Soviets. And I want a good grade because I'm trying to get most of these pronunciations right. I mean, Ruzioni is just so hard to say. Johnson wants to draw it back. He wins the faceoff. Ramsey. And try the one-timer from the left side. He shoots, and Tretiak saw that all the way. He kicks it. Rebound is loose in front of the net. Kazatanov has it for the Soviets, and here they come. Petrov. Up the middle, Lebedev. In the zone. He's in trouble. He loses it, and Ruzioni starts the rush the other way for the Americans. Ramsey. Hit in the boards. Soviets have it up the middle. They give it up, and Ramsey again behind the American net. Both teams change. Christian dumps it. Russians will get it. Skvortsov. Under 4 minutes to go. Maltsev in the zone to Mikhailov. Krutov from the center. Shoots. Craig got a piece of that. Stick save. Americans have it. Kenny Morrow to Christian. And Dave Christian is offside. 3:20 first period. Pavlich for Chota and Strobel, the fourth line on for the Americans. Sutter and Hughes on defense. And Maltsev is out there with Krutov and Mikhailov, with Starkiev and I'm going to try to pronounce this right. Yeltinov. Anyway, face off just outside the Soviet blue line. Maltsev wins it. They clear it, but not far enough for an icing. Now for Chota the other way to Pavlich. Strobel's open in the middle. Strobel shoots. Starkiev with a block. Moved out of harm's way, and the Americans will set it back up. Vorochata. Hit by Balderas, and there's another power play. He gets called for the cross-check. 2:11 to go in the first period. So this is the second American power play. They went 0 for 1 on the 4-minute one early in the period. You know what? I actually lived in New Mexico at that time. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Boston Spa is a beautiful area. So Johnson and Zlutkov are out for the face-off. Johnson wins it, draws it back to McClanahan. McClanahan behind the net. They'll pass it around. Ramsey is hit by Harlamov. Soviets move it back out, and the Americans will have to reestablish. The penalty will expire before the period ends. 1:32 on the cross-check to Balderas. To Ruzioni, to McClanahan, to Ruzioni, Johnson. with a long shot. Biletnikoff with the block and has control. He clears it, and the Americans will set it back up. Suter, 1:15 on the power play. Tretriak leaves it behind for Starikov. Soviets ice it, 50 seconds left. Here comes Silk. Shot in behind the net. Harrington has it. Fetisov blocks it. Fetisov and Silk fight for it. Fetisov gets it. Now Lebedev and Broughton fight for it. The Soviets clear. Silk through center now. Broughton. 10 seconds in the power play. 21 in the period. Behind the net. Harrington to Broughton to Silk. Silk. Just going to fire one out here if he can. Left side. Trechiak saw that one all the way. Saves it. Loose puck is in front. Lukov will win the puck, and the period's over. So after one, 19 shots to 8 in favor of the United States. But the U.S. goes 0 for 3 in the power play. After one, it's the Soviets 2, the Americans nothing. And so the scoring, Golikov from Balderas at 1:50. And Harlamov from Makarov at 5:20. They scored twice early on Craig, and then the Americans kind of settled down. The first goal came on a delayed penalty to Baker. Shots 18-9 in favor of the Americans. Face-offs 12-10 in favor of the Americans. Both teams are delivering the goods. The Americans have tried 28 shots and have gotten nothing past Tretiak, who saved them all. Craig, better as the period went along. You can see a lot of people had 2 shots. Johnson, 8 of 9 from the face-offs. And for the Soviets, as you can see, Kharlamov and Golikov with the goals, and Vasiliev, the defender, with 3 blocked shots. Maltsev, 5 of 6 on the face-off. So drink time for me. Well, pretend it's like the Olympics. Mark, thanks for joining. Soviets scored twice early, so you're in time for the American comeback. I'm trying to be between streams because I've got a basketball game that someone else is doing at 9, and I just read a baseball game that I wasn't sure when it was ending. So I'm trying to squeeze things through. Okay. So we're trying to get through to make sure that everyone has enough time. Yeah. Let's see. In February of 1980, I was 8 with the baby sister on the way. They can outshoot him. Soviets had the best goalkeeper in the world, not named Kenny Dryden. In 1980, Dryden retired. So the best goalkeeper in the world is playing in this game, and it's not Jim Craig. No, it's NBA. It's NBA. He's doing NBA, Mr. Mike. He's putting them into separate divisions, but it's NBA. All right, he's got a game at 9 o'clock. Yes, Clinton, another child. God help you. $69.70. All right, so Johnson, Eruzione, and McClanahan against Makarov, Slutkov, and Harmalov for the Russians. Kasatonov and Fetisov on the ice for the Soviets on defense. Ramsey and O'Callahan on defense for the Americans. And Mark Forsberg, so the basketball is 69-70. This is 79-80. And Mark was playing high school basketball the night of this game. You told me where you were from at one point. That must have been kind of weird. So Johnson and Slukov will face it off. Johnson wins it. They chase it down into the zone. One-timer for Johnson is wide of the net. Makarov has it for the Soviets. They dump it down on Eruzione. Johnson. Fetisov with a hit. Slutkov to Makarov. Kasatonov. Far shot left side. Misses wide. Americans have possession. McClanahan to Johnson. Fetisov has it the other way. Soviets have it at center. Peruvican dumps it in. Now Morrow for the Americans. Clears it all the way down. Now we're just playing it back and forth. Maltsov with the steal. Golikov has it at center to his brother Alexander to Starkiev. And they pass it back and forth. Schneider with a check. And Schneider's checks Starkiev. And the Russians are upset with that. Here comes Christian, right side. Dumps it in for Broughton to Schneider. To Christian. Right wing shot. Tretiak with the save, and he'll hold on for a face-off. 16:52, second period, 2-0 Soviets. Pavlich for Verchada and Strobel, the fourth line for the Americans. Lebedev, Petrov, and Skvortsov for the Russians. With Katsatanov and Fetisov playing defense. Ramsey and O'Callahan for the Americans. My name started like 80-81, Celtic hater. So Pavlich wins the faceoff, draws it back to O'Callahan. Verchada's open on the left side. Americans can try to work it to him. Somehow he ends up on the right. Shoots! Tretiak saw that one all the way, and he'll cover it up, and we'll do it again. So the first line's out there. Johnson with the Ruzioni and McClanahan. Skvortsov, Petrov, and Lebedev for the Russians. Vasiliev and Peruvican. The defenders, Baker and Morrow. Back up Johnson. Johnson. Petrov wins the face-off. And they're offside. Skvortsov moved before anyone else did. So face-off now in front of the American zone. Christoph and Slutkov on the face-off. Silk and Harrington with Christoph. And the face-off is won by the Americans. Silk to O'Callahan. Shoot from the right side, misses wide. Soviets have it. Now to Makarov in the zone. KLM line is in. Makarov, wrister. Left side long, misses wide. Armaloff with a rebound. Right on target. Craig sees that one all the way, and he'll hold on. So now Broughton versus Maltsev. Schneider and Christian with Broughton, Krutov, and Mikhailov with Maltsev. Schneider will take the face-off instead, and Maltsev wins it to Krutov. Krutov's going to break a stick here. His shot goes well wide, and the Americans have it. Morrow looks at Herbrooks, gets his instructions, and they escape. Broughton. But Broughton beat the puck off the offside, and we'll have a face-off in front of the Soviet zone. Schneider and Christian with Broughton. KLM line in for the Soviets. Schneider will take the draw instead. Lukov wins it for the Russians. Karlamov dumps it in for Craig, and he'll leave it the net to play it. He finds someone to dump it to. Here's Christian to Broughton. Up into the Soviet zone. Karlamov gets called for a cross-check. Ho-ho! A 4-minute penalty here in Harlamov as he just clotheslined Neil Broughton. And so the Americans, for the second time tonight, will get a 4-minute power play. They just haven't done anything with it. I bet, Mark. That's a great story. That's a great story. So Johnson and Golikov with the face-off. United States gets it. McClanahan to Johnson to Mike Ramsey. Defender shoots. Tretiak gives up the rebound to McClanahan to Johnson. Down to O'Callahan. The left defender lines and fires, but late enough. Blocks it. Goes to center, and here comes the States again. Johnson skates it in. Fires a quick one, and Tretiak stops. And we got ourselves a face-off. So 30 seconds into this double minor. And it's already 2 shots on for the Americans. They've outshot the Russians 23-9. Johnson and Vladimir Golov. Johnson wins the face-off. Johnson will shoot high. McClanahan in front. Tretiak gives up the rebound to McClanahan. McClanahan is going to try to wrap this one around. He shoots. Tretriak stops that one all the way. Soviets have it. They clear it. Takes the time off. And they eventually dump it, and here comes Johnson. 3:02 to go in the double minor. 13:34 second period. Johnson now in the zone to McClanahan. No one open. They dump it around behind the net. Now Johnson, again, no one he really wants to find. The Soviets will do this all day. Next pass around. McClanahan, again, there's no one there to take the shot. The Soviets are loving this. Johnson has it. Again, there's no one open. Americans are killing time here. Ruzioni tries for Augie outside. His slapper gets to the net, and Tretriak will freeze it. 2:25 in the cross check to Karlamov, and 12:57 to go in the second period. Shots 26-9 in favor of the Americans. Broughton and Vladimir Golikov. Broughton wins the faceoff to Silk, to O'Callahan. Harrington shoots, and another rebound by Tretriak. Oh, what a beautiful save. Ramsey from the right tries from the blue line. Tretriak gives up another rebound. This time it's O'Callahan. He's going to try to tee one up. His slapper is blocked. O'Callahan has it. Broughton open on the outside on the right. Pass to Broughton. He shoots, and another save by Tretriak. Rebound controlled by the Soviets. They chip it down, and here comes the United States. Broughton again, behind the net. 1:55 to go in the penalty. O'Callahan. Long shot from the blue line. Wrister blocked by Billednoff. Broughton. Behind the net. Finally, he's going to try a wraparound. Comes around from the left on Tretriak, saving a rebound. Big save in the Butte. Ramsey to Silk, back to Ramsey. Long shot from the blue line. He shoots, another save. And the two teams kind of get a little physical after the whistle. The United States, in the first 28 minutes of this game, have put on 31 shots. And Tretriak has stopped them all, including 10 now in this power play. The Soviets have 9 shots overall and put 2 early past Craig. Broughton with Silk and Harrington. The forwards. Russians win the faceoff. They clear. 1:26 in the power play. Broughton dumps it in for Harrington. To O'Callahan. Stolen by Golikov. Here come the Soviets. They clear it. Mike Ramsey, less than a minute to go in the power play. Puck is loose. Broughton to O'Callahan in the zone. Harrington loses it, and the Soviets clear. O'Callahan, 29 seconds to go in the power play. Harrington to Silk. O'Callahan shoots. Saved by Tretriak. Again, another kick, and this time the Soviets clear. Power play is over. Verchada to Morrow. Kenny Morrow. Outside shot. Saved by Tretriak. Soviets have it again. They pass it to center. Maltsev to Karlamov to Petrov. He loses an edge, and the Americans get it back. We're halfway home here. 9:49, second period. Morrow to Pavlich. Strobel in trouble. Here come the Soviets the other way. Petrov dumps it in. Harlamov to Makarov. He winds and fires. Blocked by Hughes. Pavlich the other way for the Americans. Now Ruzioni to Johnson. Mark Johnson. Right side face-off dot. Blocked by Starkey. Soviets clear. Both teams send out new players. Ruzioni to McClanahan to Morrow. Morrow with a low shot. Tretriak sees that. Gets a kick on it. Rebound controlled by the Russians. Fetisov clears it back across, and we have ourselves an icing. 7:59, second period. 2-0 Soviets. Tretriak has saved 34 shots. Let's see. Mark Pavlich, John Harrington, and Buzz Schneider. Well, let's put it this way. The United States has had 10 minutes of power play time and not converted. They've had lots of shots, but you've got, like I said, the stone wall in between the pipes for the Soviets. And that's pretty much all you need. I'm Ron Skendryden. That's right. Kenny Morrow had, that's right, 1980. So I'm going to take a drink. All I care is that you're enjoying the ID. And sorry to get mixed up on the times, Mark. Like I said, busy night on friends in the channel, and I wanted to make sure that I forget how long it takes to play one of these and stream it. And I didn't want to run into... I mean, Dave's usually has that 9 o'clock on Friday slot covered. And I wanted to make sure I gave him... I wasn't brushing up against him. But hopefully you'll see the comeback if there's one. Broughton with Petrov. Petrov wins the faceoff. Skvortsov now in the zone. Alexander. Skvortsov shoots. Craig gets the glove on it, and we got ourselves a TV timeout. 7:42 in the second period. The Japanese qualified for this tournament. I can't imagine. I think they're in the same group as the Soviets and the Finns. Those games must have been absolute jokes. Kristoff for the face-off for the Americans. Second line forward in. Silk and Harrington with him. Petrov, Lebedev, and Skvortsov, the forwards for the Soviets. Kristoff wins the face-off, sets it up. Americans clear, but only to center. Petrov to Lebedev to Petrov. Back to Petrov. He can't control it. Ramsey deep in his own stones. Kotsanov drills O'Callahan. But they can't set it up. Craig will play it behind the net, and O'Callahan leaves it for Ramsey as the Americans try to set something up. They set it up too well. It's an icing call. 6:16 to go, second period. Mark Johnson, Eruzione, and McClanahan in for the Americans. Krutov, Maltsev, and Mikhailov for the Russians. Vasilyev and Peruvikin, the defenders for the Soviets. Baker and Morrow for the Americans. Maltsev in the American zone with Johnson on the faceoff. And Johnson wins it. McClanahan in the zone to Eruzione to Johnson. Again, nobody open. The Soviets will let the Americans kill as much clock as they want. They dump it around. Eruzione, again, nobody open. The Soviets are playing a bend but don't break defense. It's bent, but it hasn't yet broken. Johnson going to try the outside shot. Right side, blocked by Peruvikin. Soviets have it. Maltsev shoots it into Mikhailov. They now set up Krutov. Right side shot, blocked by Johnson. McClanahan clears it. It's going to center. Fetisov for the Soviets. 5:10, center ice. Second period. Ramsey and Zlukov chase it around. Makarov to Zlukov. Broughton seals it for Makarov, and the Americans take it out of their zone. Broughton is offside, and we have another TV timeout. 4:35, second period. Soviets 2, Americans nothing. They lost to the Soviets 12-1. How Japan got one? That's a mystery. Yeah. Someone must have been having a smoke break. So, face-off coming just outside the Soviet zone. Pavlich with Verchada and Strobel for the Americans. Mikhailov and Krutov join Maltsev. Shots in the game, 34-10 in favor of the Americans. But the scoreboard has a 2 by the Soviets. Strobel. They fight along the boards. United States flips it out. Here comes Mikhailov in the zone to Maltsev. Maltsev lost an edge. And here comes Verchada. Maltsev takes it away at center. Krutov dumps it in. Maltsev to Krutov at the blue line. Verchada gets the swipe away from it. Americans trying to change. Verchada at the blue line to Pavlich. From the slot, Tretiak makes the stop and will hold on. 3:02 to go in the period. First line on for the Americans. Skvortsov, Petrov, and Lebedev for the Soviets. Yep, I did earlier. That's how I knew that the format here was beyond screwy, which is why we're not doing this as a proper playoff game. 16-0. Wow, yeah. 8-0, 5-0, and 3-0. And after it, the Soviets went to the Dairy Queen in town and got ice cream. Actually, they would have gone to the Howard Johnsons and gotten ice cream. So Eruzione, Johnson, and McClanahan face off in the Russian zone. Petrov, Skvortsov, and Lebedev for the Soviets. Johnson hopes to draw it back. He does. McClanahan back to Johnson. Eruzione again. Nobody open. He's behind the net. Soviets play zone better than most American college basketball teams. Now Johnson behind the net. No one open. This time it's Johnson. Again, there's nobody open. Soviets love this. Johnson, McClanahan, back to Johnson again. He can't shoot, and he's too afraid to go do the wraparound thing. Eruzione, again, there's nobody open for the Americans. McClanahan to Johnson to Baker. This time Baker's going to shoot. Bill Baker. Slapper. Tretiak sees that one and gets the glove on it to save it. 1:41 to go in the second. Christoph, Silk, and Harrington for the Americans. The Golikov brothers and Balderez for the Soviets. Christoph loses a face-off. Soviets dump it. Golikov to Balderez. Alexander Golikov. He misplays it. Back comes Christoph. They dump it in. Harrington has the puck to Christoph. Over to Dave Silk. Hughes might be open outside. He is. Shoots long right. That misses everything. Wide left. Here come the Russians. Less than a minute to go. Puck is moved out. Silk. Roughly 30 seconds left. Stage clear. Starkiev clears it. That's it. So the period is over. The Soviets get 2 shots in the period. 2 shots. The Americans have 17. After 2, however, it's the Soviets 2, the Americans nothing. So there's no change in the scoring summary. Golikov from Balderez at 150 the first, and Harlamov from Makarov at 520. The Americans hold the Soviets to 2 shots in the period, 36-10 overall. And the United States have had 53 shot attempts and 12 scoring chances. But Tretiak has held and held and held. Craig hasn't done that badly. He's only faced 8 shots. Ramsey has 5 shots for the Americans. Johnson has 4. O'Callahan, McClanahan, and Broughton have 3. Let me take a drink. Yeah, two of the first 3 have gotten through. So a reminder. This Retro Sports Network Classic is presented by HockeyTournaments.com. If you are looking for a hockey tournament in your part of North America, go to HockeyTournaments.com and see what's available. If you are organizing a tournament, hey, it's never too early to think about what you might be organizing for next fall and winter. Go to HockeyTournaments.com and find the right package for you. That's HockeyTournaments.com. No problem, Mark. Hope you're enjoying this. Been forever since I've called a hockey game. And I'm stunned that the United States has played like this and gotten nothing past Tretiak. To have all that penalty time and Zippo pass through. So tonight on our Friends of the Channel, don't forget that Dave Little has basketball guy. I forget who's playing in the 69-70 replay, but that's coming up for you in about an hour and a half at 9 o'clock. And I think Bobby Catalano wants to stream tonight something as well. Can't imagine she's playing any games. Or she might be playing a game, but not a sports game. So that's both tonight around 9 o'clock. I know Dave's is around 9. Tomorrow on this channel, or Saturday if you're watching this on demand, we will finally play the rain-delayed California Angels and Detroit Tigers game that was supposed to be on Thursday before the wife got hurt. And Sunday, it'll be the Lakers and the Kansas City Kings around noon or 1 or something like that. So that's what's coming up on Retro Sports Network. Hope you join us all for that. And ID Jester, if he's paying attention, is cutting off all the cards for his continued demonstrations of National Pastime Next Generation Plus. And kind of hoping that we do a chat with Al Saturday night. So if you're new to the channel and new to the community, hit that like button and subscribe. And you never know what we're going to do. But this was requested by Mark Forsberg. And I was like, okay, I really didn't want to buy it. And going, I might as well, because I actually had thought about doing something for the 40th. So I might play this game a year from tonight again. But it is actually the 39th anniversary, and I said, what the hey? So there you go. All right, so enjoy the third period right here on Retro Sports Network. Ow! Yeah, Sarah's fine. Sarah will be better. Let me go back on camera and address that for a second. As most of you know, she works in an assisted living facility and has arthritis in her back. And so she was taking care of a resident with some memory issue problems, and that resident punched or slapped her in the back twice in the spot where she's injured. And so that was out of work, go to the workman's comp doc. So she was out of work yesterday. She did some physical therapy today. They said that she could go back to work, but she was pretty sore. So she stayed home. And so to get the weekend off. So she goes back for another session on Monday, and then we'll see what the doctors tell her. But thanks for asking. She's fine, but very sore. D. Scott Howard is with us. And hello, Al. All right. So Johnson, Eruzione, and McClanahan are the forwards for the Americans. Makarov, Zlutkov, and Harmelov for the Soviets. The KLM line, or BMZK if you want to be picky about it. Kazatanov and Fetisov on defense for the Soviets. Ramsey and O'Callahan for the United States. I certainly will, and she thanks you all for the good wishes. She likes to be healthy because that means that I get out of her hair and spend time with you guys. As opposed to, well, honey, what do you need to do? So she and the cat are entertaining themselves out in the other room while I call a hockey game from 39 years ago. So, but it's great to have Al back with us. And so let's get this started. The Soviets, 10 shots in the entire game. The United States had 19 in the second period. Get the mouse in the right spot. Puck is dropped, and Johnson wins it for the United States. Karloff and McClanahan fight for it. Now McClanahan has it. Soviets knock it away from Eruzione. Karloff comes across, but he comes across offside. 30 seconds gone in the period. Kristoff, Silk, and Harrington for the Americans. Krutov, Maltsev, and Mikhailov for the Soviets. Just in front of the blue line. In front of the American zone. Maltsev wins it. Soviets clear it back. They dump it around. Now Maltsev's going to get a shot. Maltsev shoots. Craig stands tall. And we got a face-off. Vladimir Golikov with Alexander on his left and Balderas on his right. Johnson, Eruzione, and McClanahan the forwards for the United States. In front of Craig, they drop the puck. U.S. gets it. Eruzione into the zone to Johnson. Back to Buddy Baker. Balderas gets called for another penalty. Silk is on as the extra skater. Bill Baker. And a fire one. He shoots. Tretiak save. Rebound. Throw by Silk. Wants Eruzione open. Eruzione with a shot. Shoots. Save! And Balderas will get 2 minutes for roughing. And so the Americans go on the power play again. Lebedev and Vladimir Golikov are the forwards for the Soviets. The B-man and Starikov for the Russians on defense. Eruzione, Johnson, and McClanahan for the Americans. Suter and Og for the Americans on defense. Johnson and Golikov on the face-up. Golikov wins it. Soviets skate it down. McClanahan with the hit. Americans have it at center. McClanahan gains the zone to Sutter. Sutter. Blue line special. Save and a hold by Tretiak, and both teams are getting a bit impatient with each other. So Neil Broughton comes out for the face-off against Slutkov. Armalov is the other forward. Silk and Harrington join Broughton, Suter, and Hughes for the Americans on defense. 2-0 Soviets, both goals within the first 5:20 of the first period. Broughton wins the face-off to Silk, to Sutter, and a fire. Shoots wide, misses right of everything. Silk has Hughes open outside. Hughes. One-timer, Tretiak, rebound. Harrington. Wraparound shot. Shot 41 is a save and a hold by Tretiak. He has stood on his head. 41 saves. And 17-10 to go in the game. If the Soviets win this, it doesn't matter who scored for them. Tretiak, who got yanked out of the real game after the first period, has redeemed himself in spades here. Johnson and Vladimir Golikov on the face-off. In the Soviet zone, Golikov wins it. Takes it over the line. Short-handed bid. No, Johnson takes it back the other way. Minutes ago in the power play. Johnson to Ramsey. Back to Johnson behind the net. No one open. Johnson has it again. Still nobody open. Soviets are loving this. Johnson again. Ledvo broke his stick. Johnson will pass it around. There's still nobody open. O'Callahan this time. Guarded by Kasatonov. O'Callahan shoots. Rebound. Controlled by Ramsey after Kasatonov picked it off. Ramsey. They're trying to feed it to McClanahan inside. McClanahan. Point blank range. Hit the right button. Point blank range. Save! Oh my goodness, with a blocker. O'Callahan to McClanahan. Back to Johnson. 29 seconds to go in the power play. O'Callahan to Johnson. Outside shot. Anything. Puts it on the net. Rebound. Eruzione. Again, nobody open. Johnson's with him behind the net. Unbelievable. Johnson to Eruzione. Outside shot. Left side. Shoots wide of the net. Misses left. Johnson has it. 12 seconds on the power play. Power play's over. Johnson still behind the net. 6 more shots the States put on and nothing got past Tretiak. McClanahan again. Nothing open to pass to. Lebedev hits it. Here come the Soviets. Kasatonov to Maltsev. Maltsev to Krutov in the zone. Krutov shoots. Craig with a stop. That's only the second shot for the Soviets in the period. Here comes Broughton now on the face-off with Maltsev. Schneider and Christian for the Americans. Krutov and Mikhailov for the Soviets. Broughton wins the face-off. Christian into the Soviet zone. Schneider. Left wing side. Shoots. Save. 45 shots. Unbelievable. Christoph with Silk and Harrington for the Americans. Makarov was Lukov and Harmalov for the Russians. It's the first line out there for the Soviets and the second line out there for the Americans. Sutter and Hughes, the defenders for the States. Face-off is won by Lukov to Makarov. To Lukov back there to KLM line, and Sutter just nailed him. And here comes the States on a 4-on-2 rush. Silk with Christoph, Harrington, and Hughes. Harrington waits to Silk. Christoph in alone. Saved by Tretiak. And the Soviets clear it to center. Now Broughton to Christian. Back to Broughton. Back to Christian. Again, behind the net, nobody open. Broughton. Again, nobody open. Like a broken record. Schneider. Broughton's open in the middle if the pass can get there. Broughton shoots, saved by Tretiak. And there's a TV timeout. 13:39 to go in the game. Remember, no overtime here. 47 shots the States have taken, 47 have missed. It's the Soviets 2, the Americans nothing. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It'll be Christoph, Silk, and Harrington for the States, and the KLM line for the Soviets, Harlamov, Slutkov, and Makarov, with Fetisov and Kasatonov on defense for the Soviets. Ramsey and O'Callahan patrol the blue line for the Americans. Check his stick is right. Oh my goodness, it must be made of Ubendium or something like that. All right, drink taking. Christoph and Slutkov ready for the face-off in front of Tretiak. And Christoph wins it for the Saints over to Harrington to Ramsey. Ramsey. Blue line special shot. He shoots. Blocked. Excuse me. By Kasatonov and on a play. That one didn't even get to the net. So Christoph and Maltsev will take this face-off. Krutov and Mikhailov are the forwards with Maltsev. And Christoph, well, Krutov will take the draw and wins it. Krutov in the middle to Maltsev, over to Kasatonov. Left side from the dot, no. Craig makes the save and he'll hold on. 12:55 to go in the game. Maltsev and Johnson will face it off. Eruzione and McClanahan for the Americans. Krutov and Mikhailov for the Soviets. 12:55 to go in the game. Americans down 2. Johnson wins the face-off. They ice it, but they don't. Now Maltsev to center ice to Krutov to Vasiliev. Maltsev in the American zone. Right side shot. Misses Craig by a mile to the right. America has it. Kenny Morrow skates it up to Johnson. McClanahan in the Soviet zone to Johnson. But they outskate themselves and can't find anybody open. Johnson to McClanahan to Eruzione. Eruzione's going to try to penetrate. He does. He gets around the defender. Fires. Tretiak saves it, and he'll hold on for a face-off. 11:40 to go in the game. Christoph with Silk and Harrington. KLM is on for USSR. He flamed out. This is Action PC, Dave. So Zukov and Christoph here. Soviets 2, Americans nothing. 11:40 to go. Regardless of who won this game, they would go on. The Americans were playing the Finns and the Soviets were playing the Swedes. Christoph loses the face-off. Soviets dump. Slutkov to Makarov. One-timer left side. Save. Craig makes the stop. Blocker tag. United States has it. Christoph hopes to skate it up. Silk to O'Callahan. Silk to Christoph. Harrington behind the net. Passes it around. Christoph this time and trying to penetrate against him. He does penetrate against Harlamov. Gets on the net to Tretiak, who makes another save. Rebound. Soviets have it. Zlutkov to Makarov. The United States come back with it. 49 stops. 10:26 to go in the game. Silk to Broughton. Fires it around. Back to Broughton. Delayed penalty, and Zlutkov gets called for the trip. So the Americans go on the power play again. Can they do anything with it? They've held the Soviets to 14 shots. 10:09 to go. There's plenty of time. So this is the 1980 USSR Olympic replay on Action PC, presented by HockeyTournaments.com. Because you sponsored everything else, you might as well sponsor a hockey game. If you're looking to find a hockey tournament in your area in North America, HockeyTournaments.com has the listings for you. If you're looking to set something up for now, if you're organizing something for the winter, or next fall even, then HockeyTournaments.com has the package for you. It's www.hockeytournaments.com. Sweden got the bronze, yes. Because, as I said a couple times, this was not a tournament medal round per se. It was the top two teams from each group. There were two groups. And the result of within your own group for that one game, so the Americans and the Swedes who tied, carried through to the medal round. And then it was a guaranteed two-game medal round Gugu cluster that you played both teams from the other group. So the Americans and Swedes were guaranteed to play the Finns and the Soviets, and the best out of all that bunch got the gold medal. And so yeah, so the Finns made it, played the Americans in the second game, which would be 39 years ago on Sunday, lost and didn't medal. The Soviets, from the pounding that they took by the Americans, took Sweden 9-1. And thanks for Wikipedia for clearing that up. I think I said this. I did not live in Vermont during these Olympic Games. In fact, I didn't even have a television. We lived in New Mexico. We were dirt poor. And we had mountains blocking TV signals. There was no cable. We couldn't afford it. And so we kept it long enough to watch the Super Bowl. We watched the Steelers beat the Rams, and there wasn't any point to have a TV because you couldn't really get much anyway. So, true story. All right, Johnson and Vladimir Golikov here in the face-off. America needs something, and they need it right now. Face-off is won by Johnson to Sutter. Back to Johnson. Passes it around. Johnson again. The Soviets are playing zone defense the way that Jimmy Boeheim would dream about in basketball. Johnson to Eruzione. Guarded by the B-man. He's going to put the shot on the net here. Eruzione left side. Shot blocked by Balatnov. Starkov has it. The Soviets clear. But only to center. Here's Johnson to Eruzione. Back to Johnson. McClanahan. Slapper right side. Tretiak. 50 save. 50 saves. Starkov gets it out. McClanahan to Johnson now. They'll pass it around. Augie. Two-line special, right side. Slaps one. Blocked by Starkov. Soviets clear. A minute 24 in the power play. 9:33 in the game. Augie brings it back up. Golikov with a hit. The Americans are upset. Soviets dumping in, and they give it up. Sutter, 58 to go in the power play. Sutter to McClanahan. Tretiak passes it out the other way. Soviets clear it. All the way to Ramsey. 31 seconds. Broughton is offside. So, unbelievable action here. And it's much like me in a brothel at 15. I just couldn't get it in. Broughton and Golikov on the faceoff. Golikov wins it. Penalty's over. Again, the Americans only got one shot off, and they couldn't do anything with it. Silk to Broughton in the zone. Over to Silk. Harrington, one-timer. Save by Tretiak. And a face-off in the Soviet zone. 7:52 to go. 51 shots to 14. Broughton to Maltsev on the faceoff. Broughton wins it, draws it back to Christian. Gets behind the net, nobody open. Schneider, again, same deal. Down to Morrow, to Schneider. They pass it around. Vasiliev slaps around Broughton. Back come the Soviets. They dump it. Harmalov to Zlukov. Zlukov to Makarov for the slapper. He shoots. Craig comes up big. And the face-off with 6:58 is in the American zone. Vladimir Galikov and Pavlich for the Americans. For China and Strobel, the fourth line for the States. Galikov with Alexander Galikov and Balderez, who has 6 penalty minutes for the Soviets, are the forwards. Pavlich wins it. Walks it over to O'Callaghan. O'Callaghan in the zone. Right D. Shoots. Misses wide of everything. Soviets have it. Soviets clear to center. Pavlich. They skate it back in. Pavlich in trouble. He loses it. Soviets have it at center. Pass it on off the defender. Shoots it in behind the net. Petrov gets it back. Petrov in the slot. Shoots. Craig saves that all the way. 5:46 to go. Christoph and Maltsev, the face-off in the American zone. Maltsev wins it for the Soviets to Krutov at the point. Krutov hoping that Maltsev can tip it in. Shot wide of everything. Misses left. Harrington has it back for the States. Soviets taken away, though. Now to Krutov behind the net. Krutov walks it in front of the net. Right side, left side, saved by Craig. And we have a timeout. 4:56 to go. It's the Soviets 2, the Americans nothing. My goodness. So it's Zlukov and Christoph on the face-off in front of Craig. Christoph wins it. Still, Christoph hit at center. Here come the Soviets. Craig plays it behind for Harrington. The Americans need something now. They need a miracle. They give it up again. The Soviets do. Now Ramsey to O'Callaghan. Karlamov steals it at center. They're playing dump and chase. 3:17 to go. Americans need something and need it right now. Makarov hits Silk. Soviets at center. They dump it in. Makarov. Heavy slapper. Right side. Scores! And after it, Makarov slapped it right past Jim Craig as Harlamov and Zlukov get the assists. And the KLM line puts it away. It's the Soviets 3, the Americans nothing, with 2:46 to go. Well, you can't blame Craig for that. Like I said earlier, I don't know if you played this game 100 times with the rules that they had. So we're talking ties here. Would the Americans even win 20? That's how big of a deal this was. And it's all on Tretiak. 51 saves. Ruzioni, Johnson, and McClanahan. The forwards for the States. Vladimir and Galikov will take the face-off. Alexander Galikov and Balderez are the wings. Peruvikin and Vasiliev for the Soviets. Baker and Morrow for the Americans. They got to gamble now, and the Soviets win the face-off. Balderez over to Galikov. To Balderez. He'll try the high shot. He shoots. Craig with the stop. Face-off coming, and again, Sticks get a little chippy out here. 2:28 to go. I would think that, the Americans haven't been blown out. They absolutely have not been blown out. This would be about, I would think, knowing what I know now, that 5-1, 6-1 probably should have been the score of this game for the Soviets. Americans got to be aggressive. Johnson wins the face-off. Johnson in the zone. Slapper from Johnson. He shoots wide of everything. Not even close. Johnson has it back. They pass it around. 2:07 to go. Ruzioni to Johnson again. Johnson's got to try the outside shot. Krutov is right in front of him. He shoots wide right. Soviets move it out the center. Now Morrow. 148. Americans skated in. McClanahan shoots it high over everything. Soviets have it. 144 to go. Harlamov offside. 99 seconds to go. And the Soviets feel their chances of medaling now are pretty high. And if the Americans are going to medal, they got to beat the Finns on Sunday. So Johnson and Holocaust. Johnson wins the faceoff. Played ahead. Tretriak will play it around on the Balderas. To Harlamov now. McClanahan with the steal. 129. Americans want something on the board. Harlamov knocks it off O'Callahan. Mikhailov has it at center. Mikhailov dumps it in. O'Callahan, the defender, tries to set the breakout. McCallahan to Ramsey. Defender shoots, blocked by the Soviets. 1:15 to go. Slutkov. They change. Slutkov to Maltsev. Over the line. Does Slutkov. Shoots. Misses wide. States has it. McClanahan. 1:10 to go. McClanahan to Ruzioni. Knocked off the puck. Soviets have it behind their own net. 1:05 to go. Mikhailov to Golikov to Vasiliev. Vasiliev shoots. Mikhailov's tip is wide. O'Callahan. Last minute of play. 3-0 Soviets. Johnson to hard shot. Tretiak again. He keeps it for the face-off, and that is his 52nd save. You would think if the United States had put 52 on somebody, on anybody, that this game would be tied. But Tretiak is having the night of his life right now. Kristoff will draw it back. Wins the face-off. Silk has it. Kristoff open in the middle. Slapper, save again. Oh my word, 41 seconds to go. Broughton with Schneider and Christian. Maltsev with Mikhailov and Krutov. States wins the faceoff. Christian has it behind the net. 39 seconds to go. Schneider. No one to pass it to. Baker to Morrow. Now over to Broughton. It's going to penetrate past McCallaghan. Broughton. Force wide. Still gets off the shot and misses everything wide right. Soviets have it. 20 seconds to go. Mikhailov to Krutov. They're just skating around. Christian with a check. 16 seconds. Last rush for the Americans. Broughton to Christian. 13 seconds. Slapper. Save. Kick save again. Soviets have it, and that's the game. The Americans put 18 shots up on Tretiak in the third period and get nothing. The final score, 39 years later. The Soviet Union, who should easily beat Sweden, is in line for the gold. They beat the Americans this evening 3-0. The goal in the third period, Makarov from Harlamov and Slutkov. The Americans put 54 shots on net. And you bet your sweet bippy, the first star tonight is Tretiak. Harlamov is your number 2 star, a goal and assist, and Makarov with a goal and assist is the number 3 star. Beletnikoff had 5 blocks. Tretiak had 54 saves, and Johnson for the United States won 19 faceoff. And Craig improved. He saved 85% of his shots. That would win you the Goalie of the Week award in the Eastern Massachusetts Roller Hockey League. But look at that. 54 saves. We'll do it this way. Stoned is the right word. Stoned is absolutely the right word. I've played a bunch of this. In fact, I did a complete New York Islanders 75-76 replay using Action PC and have never, ever, ever have a goalie do what Tretriak did tonight. I have always been impressed by him anyway. I mean, he's probably the best, okay, maybe one of the top 3 players to play hockey that never played in the NHL. But this was just ridiculous. And here's the American stats. They missed a lot of shots, too. Didn't deliver a lot of hits. And Johnson went 19-5 in faceoffs. I mean, and Broughton won 7 of his 12. I mean, they did everything that you were really supposed to do except score. And as Robbie says, no hope for the United States. Mark, I'm sorry you missed the beginning of this, but this is, like I said, if you told me that the Russians would win this 3-0 before the start, I would have believed that. But if you had told me the Americans would have put 54 on the net and have nothing happen, I wouldn't have believed that. I knew he was good. In the words of Neil Patrick Harris, that was legendary. All right. Well, that takes care of this special. Look in the camera on. You turn it on yourself. From time to time, we've done some hockey. We tried a hockey replay early on in the channel's history, but it drew bad ratings. So if you'd like to see more hockey, we'll put in an occasional game or two. But if you've never seen Action PC hockey before, you saw a decent one tonight. The Soviets just, their defense wasn't great, except for between the pipes. Excuse me, burping up dinner. And that was just one of the all-time classic performances by a goaltender anywhere. All right, that'll do it. I'm Ron Juckett for Retro Sports Network. Hit that like and subscribe to the channel. Basketball on Dave Little's channel tonight at 9 o'clock on a Friday. The makeup baseball game will be Saturday afternoon, noon or 1. Until then, I'm Ron Juckett for Retro Sports Network. And we'll talk to you the next time. Have yourself a wonderful Friday night.